want everyone to know, and if any employer is listening to this, that I have plenty of claims. I practice preventative labor care. Please come ask me the questions or get the information that you might need from us, because we'll help you on the front end. We're general funded. I don't need to drive up penalties or anything like that. We just want to solve the problem so that it doesn't happen again.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, because it really speaks to the ethos that I've been trying to install in business and industry, which is we're a partner. This is not about I got you in terms of the regulatory framework and how we operate. We want to be that partner in helping solve problems. Welcome to the Nevada Means Business podcast, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Business and Industry. I'm your host, Christopher Sanchez, and the director of the Department of Business and Industry. And we launched this podcast, and this is our first episode we're really excited about, but we launched this podcast to provide more information about business and industry to our community. We want to do that in a way that meets everybody where you are and where you consume information. The department's pretty complex. We have about 12 regulatory agencies, 850 employees, and 64 boards and commissions. But I'm really excited today about our first guest, and that's the commissioner, Nevada's labor commissioner, Brett Harris. Brett, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Director Sanchez. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, we have a lot to discuss when it comes to labor issues and what's going on in our state. I think let's kick off with you explaining a little bit about your agency and what you do.
Sure. So the Office of the Labor Commissioner is responsible for regulating private employment. So what does that mean? That means that we are responsible for getting people their wages, making sure they're paid proper overtime, not paid less than minimum wage, that they're getting their appropriate meal breaks, lunch or regular scheduled breaks, that they're not being deducted for those breaks if they're not supposed to be. We make sure that all other general employment rights are protected for employees. We also provide a lot of education and resources for employers. This is a wide range of our responsibilities, but we have some more niche regulatory responsibilities on public works projects, which is public construction. We do some licensing responsibilities, and then we're in charge of the Nevada State Apprenticeship Council. So the office is very busy. We do it with 28 people right now. We'll have 31 people by 2027. And I think I told you yesterday, we moved something close to 9,000 individual matters in 2025.
That's amazing, 9,000. It's intriguing to me how many people reach out to the Department of Business and Industry, yet nobody really knows much about us, which is one of the reasons why we're doing the podcast. We want to get the word out. So you mentioned kind of working with the business community and the employees. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think, as folks look at that, there's sometimes they may consider competing interests, but really it's not so much that. It's just a balance. And can you kind of talk through that a little bit?
Sure. I always tell my staff, there's nothing more personal than whether or not you get paid, because getting paid is your basis to being able to do anything, pay your rent, feed your family, go have any hobbies. So we sort of navigate between employers and employees, sometimes disputed wages, sometimes they're undisputed wages. Sometimes, things are just lost in translation, and someone thinks they asked for their wages and they didn't. Someone thinks they paid the wages and they didn't. Most of our disputes are very simple like that. And we can usually, if an employee is not paid by an employer and they have asked for their money, they can come to us and we can usually get them paid very quickly, because we find most employers want to remedy a situation that they're in violation of.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 9,000. Can you unpack that a little bit about those inquiries?
Okay, so we handled about 5,000 of those 9,000 were things like, I didn't get paid my paycheck. I didn't get paid the right amount. Money was deducted from me that should not have been. I was not paid overtime. Also things like, I did not get my mandatory break. I was not provided a lunch period. We also have some other kind of smaller, I call them like more niche statutes. So things like breastfeeding mothers protections, pregnant workers protections. There's actually a law for employment about your employer's not allowed to send a spotter to spy on you when you're working.
Yeah, who wants that?
Right. So you would be surprised how many things we really do cover. So that's kind of 5,000 of those are trying to get people money. That's primarily what we do, but also trying to give people the protections that they are entitled to in their job. Things like paid time off, sick leave, using your sick leave for a family member. After that, we send all of the public construction projects their project number. We have a lot of construction in this city and across the state. And we're fortunate in that because it does mean that people are being employed and getting well-paid jobs. Everyone on those public construction projects gets paid something called prevailing wage. That is something that we set, and that is a pretty hot topic in areas or in the industries that it concerns. So prevailing wage is about setting a minimum wage for construction workers on public construction projects. Every other year, we are responsible for collecting all of that information across the state and setting what that wage is going to be in all of the classifications. So that's something that came in. We also regulate on those projects apprentices working on them. So if you are a contractor that is fortunate enough to work on public works projects, you are getting paid in public money. And so the legislature has decided that you should train the next generation of skilled workers and employ apprentices on those projects. So that's what that law does. And let's see, we also license private employment agencies. Those provide, it's kind of like a staffing agency, and then professional employer organizations, which would provide all your employment services that are not people, HR, accounting, that kind of thing. And then, yes, the apprenticeship council. So on the AUA, we got about 1,000 of those, 1,100 of those reports. We get about 1,000 prevailing wage surveys. We get about 600 licensing matters to come through. And none of that includes certifying about, I'm going to get this number wrong, and our apprenticeship director can correct me, but thousands upon thousands of apprentices finish their apprenticeship programs in Nevada every year. And we send out certifications of completion for that too.
So your 28 folks are busy.
Very busy.
So you mentioned a lot there, from prevailing wage to what folks might face in the workplace. And so if an employer or an employee has a question, how do they get a hold of the commission?
We are very available. So I'm really proud of our website. It's almost too informative. Lawyers love it. But if you go on there, you can find anything from general employer guides, advisory opinions, general information. We try and we have sort of a legalese version that we are required to post for employer postings. And then we try and simplify things as much as we can in just an explanatory way as well. So labor.nv.gov. It's a great resource. We also have 4 public email addresses. So on that website, you can find a general email address. You can find an email for apprenticeship. You can find an email for public works. You can find another email for apprenticeship utilization.
It's like choose your own adventure.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier the legislature, and we just came off of 2025, and we had the regular session, special session. So walk us through, like, from your perspective, what was passed, what is going to have the greatest impact, what still needs to be done from your perspective, moving into building policy for 27.
I'm going to be very nerdy. So while the 2025 session was a lot for the Department of Business and Industry.
It was. I think we had, I'll get the numbers wrong as well, but ballpark, we had about 550 bills that passed. I think about a third of the bills that went through the legislature impacted the Department of Business and Industry. And the same with the special. Which, it just keeps us busy, that's for sure.
And they ran us around that building, right?
Like, a lot of exercise, a lot of steps.
All hours. But it was probably, this is real cheesy, it was like one of the most proud moments I've had in my career because we wrote Assembly Bill 502. We worked with the Government Affairs Committee, the Assembly Government Affairs Committee. They were nice enough to come to me in the interim prior to session and say, look, we hear you whine about public works. They didn't say whine, I'm saying whine. We hear you say about public works, you don't have the resources. When I came into the office in 2022, there was not a designated public works staff. It was very much a triage operation. And we, through Assembly Bill 502, we not only tried to clarify a lot of the public works chapter, but we established the Public Works Compliance Team. So I got the opportunity to help draft that bill, to help lobby that bill, present that bill. And when I found out the governor signed it, it was one of the proudest professional moments of my life.
Well deserved, and a huge feat because you're general funded.
We are.
And where most of all of our departments of business and industry are fee based, and you're one of the two that's general fund. So that's a huge accomplishment.
And we are general funded. One of the things, and I think one of the reasons that we are, is because most of the money that we collect goes straight back to people. So we were looking through the numbers just yesterday. The Office of the Labor Commissioner collected something like a little under $4.8 million last year. 3.3 of that was wages.
Wow.
So 3.3 of that went in and out straight back to people.
That's great. Yeah. And so as you look at, big accomplishment in 25, looking at now, we're already talking about 27 and prepping behind the scenes. I can't believe it. Like, to your point, I feel like I haven't recovered from running around the building already. What's next? Like, what's the next issue or gap that you see where we've got to address that? We've got to put more resources toward it and fix it.
I think we're seeing an economic shift a little bit, or at least in my office, what we are seeing is an increase in claims. Nevada, in the past 5 years since the pandemic, most of my life, this has been a booming, growing state. And in post-COVID, it grew even more. We were seeing a lot of people coming in from California, a lot of people who find our tax setup more favorable. And with that, and with a bigger population, means more businesses opening, more people employed here. And then if economic downturn occurs, obviously more businesses having to end those employment relationships and potentially being in positions where they can't pay employees, or checks bounced, or maybe they're closing entirely. So we have been looking at the trends. We are seeing an increase. It's strange. The last quarter of 2025, it really bumped up, and then it's bumping up again in this first month of 2026. So we're watching it, and we're trying to work on strategies in the office to deal with it. But one of the things that I think is helpful is, one, the education to the employer. I want everyone to know, and if any employer is listening to this, that I have plenty of claims. I practice preventative labor care. Please come ask me the questions or get the information that you might need from us, because we'll help you on the front end. We're general funded. I don't need to drive up penalties or anything like that. We just want to solve the problem so that it doesn't happen again.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, because it really speaks to the ethos that I've been trying to install at Business and Industry, which is we're a partner. This is not about I got you in terms of the regulatory and framework and how we operate. We want to be that partner in helping solve problems. And ultimately, it's better for employers and better for employees. It's interesting too, as you talk about kind of the fluctuations in the economy. Are you seeing specific trends in industries, or is it just across all industries?
We'll see trends in industries. It doesn't necessarily come with, so like right now, I don't see any particular industry struggling more than any other. The industry trends that we generally see are service industry, so restaurants, bars. The home healthcare industry has a lot of issues because with overtime and minimum wage and kind of working within a person's home, you don't always have the employment structures that you would see in other places. And then another industry that we are looking to assist more with their general employment practices. Obviously, we deal with the construction industry a lot on the public works side. We found some of the general employment practices probably need to be addressed too. So those three are kind of like who we've been looking at right now. We are also adding our NRS 608 jurisdiction to our NRS 338 claims. What that means is that if we have a public works claim that involves a contractor who is also now having regular employment violations, we're just going to put them together so that they are aware at one time, so that we don't have to separate it and come back. And that will also help them on their private projects.
That's great. And I want to pivot. You mentioned apprenticeships earlier. And, this is an area where, having come from economic development for so many years, it's one that the state had been focused on. It was part of the original 2012 Governor's Office of Economic Development plan to build more apprenticeships. And and be responsive to what industry needs. So where are we at? I mean, right now, as from where you sit and having the involvement in the development of a lot of the apprenticeship framework in the state, if you will. Well,
Yeah.
how are we doing?
Well, I'm so proud of our apprenticeship programs. So our apprenticeship director, Tony Giddens, was my very first hire. And when she came on, we sort of sat down and said, what do we want to do? And the trades do a really good job of setting this model and developing talent and passing their skills along. And the non-traditional apprentice programs were also sort of growing. Other industries were getting into the market. So we said, all right, let's look at where we could most help Nevada. Where is Nevada lacking in industry? And how do we match that up with apprenticeship programs and create non-traditional apprenticeship programs to service our state needs? And the most obvious places were education, healthcare, tech. So Nevada now, we registered the first teacher apprenticeship program in Nevada in August of 2023. It is now the largest teacher apprenticeship program in the country.
Wow, that's cool.
We're very proud of that.
And how's that work in relationship with the different districts?
So it started in Clark County. We are now we now also have one in the north in Washoe County. So it works through in affiliation with the Truckee Meadows Community College in the north and UNLV in the south. And basically what happens is that you work through the program to get paid while you're getting the education that you need to become a teacher, while you're doing your student teaching. Joan Ebert came to me when I first got this job, and she was the one that told me that these programs even existed. And she's like, I think it would be great if you guys could start one. So I went, okay. And we went out and looked, and now here we are with the biggest one in the country.
That's cool. And how much is that federally funded versus state funded?
So we have a federal apprenticeship grant for it that they're one of our recipients. The Culinary Academy is also our other sub-recipient of our federal grant. And then there's an apprenticeship teacher grant that was passed through Senate Bill 460. And that designated, I believe it's $1 million to a teacher apprenticeship program. At the time, UNLV's was the only one. So they've actually already all but spent that money. So it's really cool watching people be able to go into that profession and not have to take, this is what Joan said to me in the first part, we were one of the only states where there was a mandatory unpaid time. And it's very difficult to get, you're going to have your family float you, or are you going to do your 8 hours of in-room teach and then go and do another full-time job? So we eliminate that unpaid gap, and the program is very successful. We're really proud of it.
Well, that's great news. And I think, the sky's the limit. Now we just have to expand and replicate. And, this is a topic that comes up, and I don't know if you touch on this at all, but with, artificial intelligence now and the language learning models and like the chat GPTs, are you seeing any emerging trends in that regard? Are you hearing anything about, I know you're on the regulatory side, but, I think about the apprentice programs. I think about those being targeted to get people the skills they need to get right into the workplace. But yet we see the overall environment is changing. So I was just curious if, from where your perspective is, if you're seeing anything.
That's an interesting question. So most of the apprenticeship programs are almost industries that you need people in, right? Construction, certainly. Teaching, certainly. For example, the Culinary Academy. But I guess what we're more seeing in AI is just more of the production of everything by our claimants and our respondents coming in. All feels very chat
So
GPT.
they're using it to help them file their complaints or
yes.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you, but anecdotally, I have tried to teach chat GPT how to calculate overtime on prevailing wage in Nevada 4 times, and it forgets every time. So I said, I'm not giving you my information anymore.
Well, maybe the wizards that make these things will be listening to this podcast.
Yeah, you will not remember it, so I'm not telling you again.
Well, it's funny. I think we're all kind of in the same boat here, right? We're trying to figure out how this thing can be utilized and what its best case is for that. And from a regulatory standpoint too, it's can it enhance what we do, or is it a tool? I mean, I think the jury's still out on that. I think there's a lot of application. But so we talked about apprenticeships. We talked about the volume of the claims coming in, kind of what the economy's doing. So, I know there's other initiatives that you're looking to launch or have launched. You want to spend a little bit of time informing everybody about those?
Absolutely. So, one other thing on apprenticeships. Everyone should be on the lookout. We are hosting no debt career fairs. So the federal government hosts a national apprenticeship week the last week of April. I believe it's April 28th and May 1st. I might be April 29th and May 1st. So, but we are having one in the South and one in the North. It's all of our registered apprenticeship programs are invited to participate and exhibit the programs themselves. So you'll see the skilled trades, your laborers, your operating engineers, electricians. And then you'll see the Culinary Academy, the teacher apprenticeship program, our healthcare ophthalmologist program. We are also inviting any other workforce partners that have career training that does not require upfront investment to participate. So if anybody's listening that is not a traditional registered apprenticeship program, but there's a career path opportunity that does not first require somebody to go into debt several thousands of dollars, we would love to exhibit that at one of our no debt career fairs this spring.
And how can our community partners partner with you?
Always through our website.
Always through the website.
You can, again, find 4 direct email addresses to us. You can also call 702-486-2650. That's our general number. You can show up in our offices, but I know most people just like to click a few buttons and send an email.
That's right. With technology nowadays, it's just real easy to navigate everything.
Yes. And we've actually sent out invitations to the programs first, and now we are sending it subsequently to the workforce partners. So if somebody hears this and didn't get one, that does not mean you're not invited. Please do reach out and come and join us.
So, coming kind of full circle to where we started, you'd mentioned there's a number of different areas where they may not be as known in terms of how we can protect workers in your sphere. And folks can write in via the email or call if they have questions. But I'd like to spend a little bit more time on those maybe not as known areas, that if you can spend a little bit more time kind of unpacking that.
So the breastfeeding and pregnant workers protections, that one's fresh on my mind because I have a hearing coming up in that one. Paid leave, using your sick leave for your family members. Yes, your employer's not allowed to spy on you, so they can't send what's called a spotter to your employment to monitor you. You cannot ask somebody in Nevada what their prior salary was. You cannot badmouth somebody in Nevada to other employers or disparage them in any way. You cannot prohibit an employee of yours from running for office or exercising their political rights. There's a lot regarding health insurance. If you were going to make changes to an employee's health insurance program, or heaven forbid you didn't pay the premium, you are required to make some sort of notice or cover any unanticipated medical costs. We have a lot.
Well, I appreciate you unpacking that a little bit, because for the listeners listening in, if you feel that you have any challenges in any one of those areas and maybe something else that was not mentioned, don't hesitate to reach out to Brett and team.
It's a very good point. If something just doesn't feel right, it does not hurt to ask us. Again, we have 4 public email addresses. We will not put you on a shame board and say, Billy asked a dumb question.
Right.
So please, if you think, hey, my employer did this and it didn't feel right, we can either direct you to make a claim, or sometimes it's something that is unlawful, but it should be handled in another agency, and we can sort of direct you that way too.
Great.
For example, we don't handle discrimination claims.
Oh, yes. Right. That's EEOC.
Nevada Equal Rights Commission.
Okay. Yes. Nevada Equal Rights Commission. So you've mentioned the claims, or individuals filing a claim if there's a potential issue or concern. Walk us through what that looks like.
Sure. So first, if you believe that your employment rights have been violated and you want to make a claim, there are a couple of barrier to entry. Number one, if it's regarding your wages, you must first ask your employer for your wages. So that is because Nevada has penalties. So if you ask for your wages and you're not paid, then your wages start to accrue daily, depending on the terms of the end of your employment, and you can be entitled to additional penalties. If you don't ever ask, it's hard to start that clock. Now, you shouldn't have to ask, but that's what the law requires. Assuming all of that's been done, or it's a non-wage related issue, you can file a claim in person. You can file a claim again online. That is the most frequent way that we get a claim. Once we get a claim, we screen it through our admin. It's a very brief screening just to make sure that we have jurisdiction over the violation allegation and the dates. So for statute of limitations, we can't take claims that happened more than 2 years ago.
And is this process confidential at this point?
So you can file anonymously. You can file general complaints anonymously. If you want to file a wage claim, we have to know who you are to get you your money. So we would screen all of that, assuming that it's you've asked for the money, the dates are good, and that it's a violation we handle. The case gets assigned to an investigator. Our agency's goal and the metric that we use in the legislature is to resolve at least 90% of claims within 90 days. We are very close to that, which I think is pretty impressive considering the volume we get. I think last year we were 84%. So most people within 90 days are either going to see their claim resolved, get their wages, get it closed out. Sometimes, so once the claim is resolved to an investigator, they send out just a notice of claim to the employer. Sometimes that's all it takes. Often that is all it takes, that you get an administrative agency involved and the employer goes, oh, it's serious and here's the check. So if they don't do that or they dispute it, there's, a regular kind of a discovery period. That's what we would call it in litigation. This is pre-litigation, where the employer will say, oh no, here are my records. I don't owe that person. The employee can respond. They can go back and forth as long as that is useful to the investigator. And then the investigator has to make a decision. So they'll issue a determination, which is a written decision of their findings. And either party can object to that if they disagree with it. If there is a violation and the employer agrees or doesn't want to object to it, they can just pay it. If they do object to it, they go through an administrative hearing process. And then the hearing process will result in an order. If they don't like the order, then they can appeal to the district court, appellate court, Supreme Court, just like their regular administrative due process rights.
Thanks for explaining that process. I think that's helpful. And then also I'm thinking about process for apprenticeships. Is that application process, is that all driven by the partner organization, maybe the Clark County School District, or you mentioned Truckee Meadows Community College? Is that how that works?
So there's a list of registered apprenticeship programs on our website that is up to date at all times. That includes the contacts for each program and the websites if they have them. You would have to apply directly to the program through the program, but you can find them all on our website.
So have you found as you're in this role now for a couple of years, and what are the misconceptions about your office?
Sure. So we can't close a business. That one comes up a lot. So if a business is not doing what we say, we can send them all the letters in the world and we can't force them to close. The other thing that we cannot do is prosecute. So our statutes most of them are misdemeanors. Some of them are gross misdemeanors, and we can refer them to prosecuting agencies, but we can't prosecute ourselves. So what does that mean? You'll hear the term wage theft is kind of a popular term. Nevada does not have a statute that says, here's the elements of wage theft. What we have is statutes that say these actions by employers are criminal and can be referred to agencies, to district attorneys, to the attorney general, to cities, municipalities for prosecution. Now, our office has not done a whole lot of that referring, mostly because of the volume that we handle. But there are rare occasions where we will reach out to the municipalities, the attorney general's office, the districts, and say, do you want these types of referrals? We actually are trying to increase those referrals with repeat offenders, but we also can't force any of those prosecuting authorities to take our criminal allegations.
Yeah, that's a great point. And but it also illustrates, I think, too, the various partners that are kind of in this system that is available to help folks that may have had an issue.
And to that end, there's so much overlap in private employment regulation, right? We have overlap with Division Industrial Relations, Division of Insurance, with the Attorney General's office. We handle misclassification of independent contractors and employees, but also misclassification of workers on public works projects. So those are two very different types of misclassification claims. And so, yeah, we have a lot of partners statewide that we're trying to do mandatory referrals with and make sure everyone knows about everyone else's bad actors. And they're all under the same duress and stress too. I mean, we'll get a list of referrals from an agency and they're like, oh, we're supposed to send you this under this statute. And
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes the complexities of government are challenging within government. But for anybody listening, if you have an issue, don't be afraid of that. They certainly can reach out through your number of emails or phone numbers, and you can help them kind of navigate, where they should go based on that analysis. Before we wrap up today, is there anything you wanted to add or that we might have missed?
I would like to say that we are not scary. And I am very sincere when I say that it is in everyone's best interest to ask us for help if you need it and ask us for clarity if you need it. Particularly employers, we, again, practice preventative labor care. I am sincere in that. If you would like me to come to your office and instruct you on Nevada labor law, me or somebody else will do that. Like, we are happy to do all of the outreach and education that we can because my investigators' caseloads are getting dangerously close to 100 and we just don't need any more.
Yeah, and again, I really appreciate you taking that philosophy. I mean, we're all in the same community, right? So let's help each other be successful. Certainly if folks make a mistake, we'll help correct that mistake, but they don't have to make the mistake, right? I think it's awareness and knowing where to get the information.
And to that same end, please also don't be afraid to reach out and get our help in assisting you to adjudicate your employment issue, right? Because if you are owed wages, you should get paid those wages. And then in some cases, you're going to get paid extra wages on top of that because you've had to wait for it. And you don't need an attorney for that. Our exact purpose is so that people who can't afford attorneys can access help from the administrative side without having to pay the price of a lawyer.
Well, that's great. And Brett, really appreciate the work you're doing. Great job at being our labor commissioner for Nevada. You mentioned a number of other business and industry agencies, from insurance to real estate. Stay tuned. We'll have more guests and administrators from those agencies. Thank you for joining the Nevada Means Business podcast.